Welcome to Expert Flyer, where we bring you the inside scoop from travel industry experts. I'm your host, Lisa Caslin, and I am delighted to introduce to you a good friend and a specialist in Mexican cultural travel as well as Colombia. Her name is Stephanie Schneiderman, and her company is called Tia Stephanie Tours. Welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you, Lisa. So happy to be here.
Yeah, you've got a lot of exciting stuff going on. Now we're doing this cultural travel series, and you're going to be our first victim.
Okay,
And
great.
we wanted to home in on Mexico today. I mean, so many people, particularly from the United States, travel to Mexico. It's sort of like a go-to destination because it's inexpensive and all of that. And I think most people recognize it as a really great beach community, but there's so much more to that country. And I know you have a great in-depth perspective to share. So talk a little bit about cultural tourism there, and is it growing? Are people interested in that type of thing now?
Well, yes, and thanks for that, Lisa. That's all dear to my heart. I grew up in Mexico, so I've always felt a real strong kinship to the country and to the people. And I did see that in the United States and other countries, sometimes they saw Mexico as being really just that sun and beach destination.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think little by little now people are realizing that Mexico has so much more.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I set out to do. I really wanted to help people see the country that I knew, that I fell in love with, and I wanted to share that with travelers.
That's cool.
That Mexico has such a deep history and deep and rich cultural traditions, living cultures that are unparalleled in the world. And I found that people would travel great distances in search of this culture, this cultural experience. And I use Bhutan as an example. I say, oh, they'll go to Bhutan, and just under our nose is this wonderful country that is our neighbor, Mexico.
So when you think, I mean, I think most tourists probably, when you say Mexico, they think of Cancun, they think of Acapulco, Cozumel.
Mm-hmm.
So the destinations that you might be looking to trek into with your tourists, are they in those locations? Are they in different locations? Where are you taking them?
They're in different locations. I think the beach resorts are in very specific locations, and they've been strategically designed that way to take advantage of Mexico's very beautiful beaches.
Mm-hmm.
The destinations that we take people to are what I call the interior of Mexico. Mm-hmm. Most of Mexico and the population of Mexico exist within this interior plateau. It's between the two mountain ranges, which is the two Sierra Madres. If you look at a map, it's so interesting to look at Mexico's topography.
Mm-hmm.
You see these incredible mountain ranges that flank the whole country.
Mm-hmm.
And in between all of that is what's called the Central Plateau of Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And that lies at between 5,000 and 7,000 feet. So that's what also makes Mexico some of the beautiful climate, because you're at a southern latitude, but you're at altitude. So it mitigates. So some of the places are the great Mexico City, which I hope to talk about more.
Yeah.
Oaxaca,
Mm-hmm.
Chiapas,
Mm-hmm.
Michoacan.
Mm-hmm.
So some of these are the areas that we really like to take people to.
Yeah. Okay. So if one was deciding on going off the grid, so to speak, and calling somebody like you, we don't want to boil the ocean, obviously. So if you were to pick the top 3 destinations in Mexico for real art appreciation and cultural, involvement, what would you pick?
Okay, well, on the topic of art, and I think this is an area that people are traveling for, just like they're traveling for food. They want to understand the culture through some of these narratives.
Mm-hmm.
And the narrative of art is a very interesting one. And in Mexico, I would lead people, number one, to Mexico City.
Mm-hmm.
Mexico City is today, and it has been historically, an epicenter of artistic expression.
Mm-hmm.
And one can almost learn an entire history of Mexico by looking at the evolution of its art through history. In fact, there was an exhibit many years ago that was really fascinating. It was at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, and it was called 3,000 Years of Mexican Art. And,
Wow.
and I remember thinking, I kept calling it 300 Years of Mexican Art. And I was corrected. It's like, no, it's 3,000 years of Mexican art, because it starts with the pre-Hispanic cultures. And then it evolves through what they call contact period, the colonial experience, Mexican independence, the Porfiriato era, and then the revolution and post-revolutionary art, which is mainly expressed through the wonderful Mexican muralists, of which Diego Rivera was one of the great interpreters, and he was a participant in the actual movement of Mexican muralism.
Very interesting.
So Mexico City, number one. Oaxaca, number two. There's a lot of interesting things happening in Oaxaca related to art. And I think I would take people to Guadalajara to see some of the, to see some of the Jose Clemente Orozco murals that are known as the Sistine Chapel of Mexico.
Oh, beautiful. Okay.
In Guadalajara. They're remarkable.
That sounds wonderful. I'm glad that you brought up Diego Rivera, because there is going to be a viewing of both his work and Frida Kahlo's, right? Upcoming in the New York Botanical Gardens. That's in the Bronx. Has that already kicked off?
I think it's right around the corner. It's in May. So we're in May now. I don't have the exact date, but it's imminent.
Okay. And I think it runs through the end of May. So anybody who wants to take advantage of that certainly should check that out. And in keeping with that, you are launching a tour in August, right? That's going to kind of take people through Frida and Diego's work. Talk a little bit about that.
Okay, great. So yes, also in Detroit, there's a wonderful exhibit right now that is called, in fact, Diego and Frida in Detroit. Diego and Frida were in Detroit in 1932. And that's when he painted an incredible mural that's there today. And it's on the walls, which is what muralism is. It's public, monumental, and political. And this mural is called the Detroit Industry. So this exhibit in Detroit highlights their life here during that year. It juxtaposes Diego's very monumental and political art versus Frida's more personal and intimate art. And we felt it would be a wonderful segue for people who have immersed themselves in that topic locally in the United States, in Detroit, in New York, and other exhibits throughout the country, to say, hey, let's go to Mexico City. Let's follow the footsteps and see where Diego and Frida lived, where they met, where they painted these magnificent murals. In fact, the first mural that Diego painted was in the 1920s, and it's in a building called the Antiguo Colegio San Ildefonso. And that's when the Minister of Education asked Diego Rivera and other muralists to please begin this very didactic expression tool to teach, to reintroduce Mexicans to their history and their people. That was in post-revolutionary art. That's what it was all about. Because in the Porfiriato era, they were, Porfirio Diaz, who was the dictator for 30 years, he imported all the tastes from Europe. Architecture, easel art. And so the Mexican muralists said, no, this is not our heritage. This is not anything have to do with our history. It's the indigenous people of Mexico who really, that's our history. So it was,
yeah, sorry. I just, before we go, I wanted to give you an opportunity, because I know that you do other specialized tours that show people the textiles that were created by, native cultures and thousands of years old, right? And I think you might, just talk a little bit about that. And I think you had a couple of examples to show us too.
Yes, thank you. And so what I'm actually wearing now, I wore this for, this is from the Isthmus of Tehuantepec, Zapotec. The Zapotec women dress this way, and they love fashion and they love dress. And Frida adopted many of these huipiles from the Isthmus. many people don't realize that Mexico is very rich in textile because of the ethnographic landscape that's there. So I do have a few examples I wanted to show.
Oh, beautiful.
This one here, I don't know if we can see it, is from the Amusco, and they're in Guerrero in Oaxaca. This is all done on a backstrap loom, and they're really exquisite. I know people travel to Bhutan, to Indonesia, to Guatemala, and many areas for textile, and often they don't realize that Mexico is also. And here's a Mexican rebozo. I can't leave without showing. This is a classic rebozo. It's made in the ikat, a tying threads before they're dyed. This is called the rebozo de caramelo, and it comes from San Luis Potosi. This is made of silk. This was actually my mother's from the 1960s.
Wow, gorgeous.
And this is one made of cotton. You can see a little more of that ikat design in there.
Ah, okay, beautiful.
So that's the rebozo. So I invite travelers to come and see the wonderful textile expressions that exist because of the ethnographic landscape of Mexico.
Great. So give us your website just in case anybody wants to get a little bit more information about you.
Sure. And I'd love to chat with people and help orient them if some people are new to Mexico and don't know quite where to start, or they're very seasoned Mexico travelers, but that they want to go deeper and broader into this vast and endless country of travel opportunity. It's quite extraordinary. Our company is called Tia Stephanie Tours. And as you mentioned, Lisa, that's Auntie and Stephanie. And it's www.tiastephanietours.com.
Very simple. Thank you so much, Stephanie.
Oh, thank you, Lisa. It's been so much fun.
Same here. Hope to talk to you again.
Viva Mexico.
Bye-bye.
Bye.